Hello and welcome to Crossy's Corner. And as you can see, we have got an amazing coach, amazing athlete, amazing person in Crossy's Corner, Megan Cooke, Carcagno. I hope I've pronounced that right, Megan.
Perfectly. And thank you for having me.
So thank you. Well, it's brilliant that you're here, head coach of Duke University, coached at Wisconsin. Before that, US national team athlete, world champion in the eights. Also had that amazing, I guess, thing you can say about your own career. You've won the pair at Lucerne Regatta.
Yeah, it was a wonderful race.
So I guess one of the things that we can talk about, you're here with your little boy. He's 3 months old, is he?
Yeah, just turned 4 months, actually. Remy Carcagno.
Remy, that's a great name. Where did you get the name Remy from?
Well, this is our third boy, so we really had to dig deep in the barrel to find another name. But it's actually French Latin for oarsman. So we thought it would be fitting to maybe push one of our sons towards the boat.
Wow. And I mean, I'd like to talk to you about, how the past few months have been in terms of training and so on. But, one thing that springs to mind is how is it as a female coach, as a mum with 3 kids? I've never really taken to coaching myself because I thought it was so demanding as a career and job. So I'm really interested to hear, what your experiences are.
Well, I think in any situation where you're balancing taking care of your athletes and your team, your staff, and then your family at home, it's an incredible challenge. And I think throw in a pandemic and you are fit to be mad to be operating in this type of setting. My older 2 sons have not been in school for a year.
Wow.
And so to balance their needs being 10 and 8 and their priorities with what they need to get done in terms of their schoolwork, it's been a big challenge. We found out we were pregnant with Remy the day that everything was canceled. So the March of last year was the day we found out. And in hindsight, I don't know if I would have had another baby given the past year that we've all lived through. But at the end of the day, we're very, very grateful for him. And it's just, really, really been a wonderful family. And I do think it is really important for the women on my team to see, how you can balance it and how it is making you a better coach and a better athlete. So I think it's been really special.
You must be an amazing role model, as a person, as a woman, for the guys at Duke University, and wider than that too, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you try to be. I mean, you try to do your best, and you're human and humble, and you really have to compartmentalize very well, and not let that mom guilt get to you. But yeah, I think it is powerful. I think it is really important for women to see that you can continue in sport and continue in athletics and not feel like you have to give something up, especially something that's really passionate and personal to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in coaching?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I love telling everyone I grew up, my dad was our basketball coach. And so I grew up just with a coach in the household. My mom would wash all the towels, after the games, and I would go to the games and watch my dad coach. And the thing that really struck me was just how passionate he was. I mean, he would lose his voice. He was just screaming, for his guys and his kids. And, and you're young and you don't really quite get it, why they're so involved. And I would think, oh God, these guys must hate him and be terrified of him. But, the next day we'd run into one of the kids in the grocery store or something, and they just loved him. They loved Coach Cooke, my dad. And it was really fun for me to see that interaction, to see how much passion he would have with it. And so I just kind of knew, as I found my calling with sport, that it would be something that I'd love to do. I love the idea of giving back, and I love watching women fall in love with the idea of rowing.
I heard this interview with you, Megan, and one of the words you used to describe yourself was passionate, which was the same word you just used to describe your dad. I mean, how much of your dad do you have in you, and how much of your mum, and what little bit from your mum?
I think I have a little bit from my mom, but yeah, I am my father's daughter. That's for sure. There's pictures of us, and we're built very much the same way. He's like maybe an inch or two taller than me, but it's pretty funny. I mean, putting us side by side, we are definitely related.
Now, one of the things about you is you're not the tallest of Oars women, I gather.
I always think about how much easier my life would have been if I had had about 3 more inches or a few more centimeters on my build. But then I think I don't know if I would be who I am if I had that. But yeah, man, life would have been a lot easier.
So we can talk about that when you got in the national team. But how was it? How was it starting out rowing? Did you have any sort of ideas that this was a good sport for a woman of your size?
I didn't really know too much about it. I mean, you have to remember, I grew up in California, and back then there just wasn't that many, clubs. And I think when you're in Boston area or upper Northeast, you're kind of constantly exposed to the sport, certainly in London area. But I didn't really know too much about it, and I was running track and field and just kind of getting my fitness there and getting, comfortable with sport. And one of my friends said, "Oh, you should try it for the rowing team." And I thought, oh, that's so dumb. Why would I go spend my time in boats? Like field sports and running, and that's where it's at. And so, eventually she convinced me, and I went out and we rode in my club town in California. We rode on this beautiful little lake, and it actually reminds me a lot of Lucerne in some ways. It's the Sierra Mountains surrounding this gorgeous little body of water, and it's probably only about 2,500 meters long. But man, when you were there, it just felt like you were in the trees, and you'd see, birds flying around and just calm. And, coach would say something on one end of the lake and it would travel across the entire water because there was just nothing to disrupt it. And I remember my first few outings there and just thinking, this is magical, just magical. And I just completely fell in love with the sport there.
So that's why you fell in love with the sport. But what got you hooked on taking it further, on representative honours? I guess it was quite a small boat club that you were first involved in.
Oh my God, my club was so tiny. It was funny, there was only because we were in the mountains. We had to pick a launch, the coaching launch, the motorboat, up and down into the water. We weren't allowed to leave in the water. It was drinking water. So there's this huge ramp, and it must have been 100 meters of this ramp, so steep that it would take all four of us from the underneath of the launch pushing as hard as we could, and the coxswain would go up in the front and kind of steer the tip of the dolly, and so I swear is what we got good. It was how we got good. It was just going up this ramp up to the top. But then, putting the launch in the water, it was like controlled chaos. I mean, we were barely holding on to this thing that's going 90 miles an hour. Somehow we got it in the water every single day. But I don't know if it's just my personality or I had the right coaching, or I was just the product of my environment. But for some reason, I fell in love with it, and I wanted to see how good I could get. And I just had this nature about me that I thought, okay, there's four of us. We have a coxswain, let's go to youth nationals. Let's go to the top, high school race in the country, and let's see what we can do. Why not? And so we went from, 4 rowers and a coxswain to medaling at the youth nationals with no depth. I mean, if one of us was sick, there was no practice, kind of thing, just not that kind of depth. Then the programs continued to build and to foster some really, really good athletes. But yeah, I think there was just a bug inside of me that just kind of lit me up and then helped me get on to college and then eventually the U.S. team.
So did you choose the college that you wanted to go to?
No. Well, yeah, I say this story with all due respect. But, in my head, I wanted to go row in college. So of course I called the #1 program in the country, and that was Washington at the time. And I remember speaking with Eleanor, I think it was, and I have so much respect for her. I don't ever want to sound like I'm not being courteous, but I called up and they said, okay, yeah, you're interested. Great. How tall are you? 5'9". How much do you weigh? 150 pounds. What do you pull for a 2K? And it was, 720 something. Thanks, but no thanks. And I was like, oh no, that's it. I'm done. And so, it rebounded quickly. And then Cal, UC Berkeley, Cal was right up the street from me, about an hour away from home, and a family school. I had a lot of family that had gone there. So they were going through a coaching transition and had just, they hadn't even hired him at the moment, but I called up the old coach and said, can I come out for an official visit? And came out, loved it. And I applied to one school, got into one school, and that was it.
So how does a woman with a 720 erg make it on, through Cal and then onto the under-23 team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hard work and just a big heart. I think, I had a number of teammates who were older than me, and they were, fast, really fast. And so, I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to pair with her. And it's going well. I think I can do this. And I just kept getting the ideas from teammates in my mind that I could be successful. And so I worked that 720 down to a 7 flat, and was, trying to go into the 7-minute mark, which, I think it's a little bit different now. I think so many people have so much more exposure to erging and proper training regimes. And so I think that's a little easier now. But back then it was a little faster, I think. But I was able to get an invite to camp and went to camp, and it was a huge group of women there. I was completely out of my league, but managed to earn a seat and go off to Nations Cup, which it was called then, and race and earn my first international medal.
You say you were completely out of your league, but that's all evidence to the contrary. You've got something about the underdog tag about you, I'm guessing.
I think so. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, in my mind, I don't feel like the underdog, like I look around and I look at, people that are built better for rowing, and I look at people that have the resumes of junior team and all this, proper training and all that. And I do, think I might appear to be the underdog, but in my mind, I'm on the medal stand. I'm doing whatever it takes to be successful. And I just have this unyielding belief in myself that I can do anything I want as long as I put in the work to do it. And I think to this day, like, that's something I just try to instill in my crews. We don't have to have the resume. We don't have to have the boathouse or the prior history or the traditions. If we decide to do something, we just have to do the right amount of work.
So I'm guessing you were this kind of person that would end up in the bows of a boat, or possibly if you were, really on form in the stroke seat. Where was your place that you got put by the coach, or you like to row?
Oh, that's such a good question. So in college, I spent 4 years in 7 seat.
Wow.
Yeah. I think actually the coach put me in stroke seat for like a day or two and then quickly pulled me out. I'm one of those people that, is like too much of a thinker up there. And so he had to just, let's go back to 7. That's your job, which I loved. And then on the US team, quickly to the bow. If it was, luckily, some years we would have a starboard rigged boat or bow side boat. And so I would be lucky enough to earn my spot in 2 seat instead of bow seat.
Yeah. So talk to me about the transition between going to the under-23s. I guess you'd finished college by then?
Yeah, so I graduated, yeah.
What was the gap between that and making the national team for you, Megan?
I would say it was about a year in time and about 10 years in emotion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, traditionally athletes are pretty good in college, and they, are good enough to kind of just go off and join that team and kind of just pick up where they left off. And for me, it was a real journey. I mean, I wasn't, fast enough. And Tom Terhar, who's the head coach of the women's team then and now, is genius, a really, really smart guy, and just incredible at producing crews. But he, flat out said, you're not fast enough. You need to get faster. And so I trained. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no training program. I had one teammate sent me like a 2-week snapshot of what they were doing on the US team. Like you get the little piece of paper that's like, this is your schedule for the next 2 weeks. And I just took that and repeated it about 14 times. And then I, scraped up some money and bought a boat, and my parents helped with that. And I practiced as often as I could, wherever I could, however I could. I was coaching a little bit then just to make some money, and I would train with every single team that I coached every day. Running stadiums, running stairs. I really had no idea what I was doing, but enough to feel like I was getting faster. So, yeah.
So you had a whole year of doing that.
Yeah. Eventually was invited down to a camp down in Chula Vista. Was able to produce, some practices that were okay. And I think, enough for me to be able to garner that invite to come down that following summer. And this was the Olympic year. So it was before 2004. And so the best thing that I think ever happened to my elite rowing career was I was able to be the young, new athlete during the Olympic year, because there was just no expectation, no pressure. And I was everyone's training rabbit on the race course. So Tom would, put me in a double or a single or something and start me early. And then the entire Olympics team's job was to chase me down. And all this while I'm trying to build up my, mental confidence. But it was fantastic. I was just happy to be there. I'll carry your water. I'll take the oars down for you. Do you need some Gatorade or some sunscreen? Let me get that for you. But anything I could do to feel like I was part of their process for the 2004 games, I would do. I was just enthralled by the idea of being an Olympian and being around Olympians.
So you had that chance to put it into effect in 2005 or 2006. What was your breakthrough year?
Well, 2004, I went to the World Championships in the women's 4, which was not an Olympic event. So I went to the regular. Yeah, exactly. We had kind of a fun boat, just very random athletes, and I don't think we definitely did not medal. But I kept, because I was kind of the do-all kind of kid. I was sweeping and sculling and doing it all, and so. In 2005, I partnered with a girl named Leah, and we won trials in the double. So wow. I went from the straight 4 in 2004 to the double in 2005. And so it's fun when athletes ask me now, how, can you make the transition between sweep and sculling? And I'm like, yeah, you could probably do it between 2 practices if you needed to.
That was a crazy championship.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm glad you remember it. It was, we unloaded and started, rowing, and then all of a sudden a typhoon blew through. And so we were all back sequestered at the hotel and eating sushi and looking out our skyrise but you're at the World Championships. There's just nothing better than that feeling.
So it's a pretty big jump to make the transition from rowing in the women's double to rowing in the women's 8. And you doubled up in the pair for the World Championships of 2006, didn't you? Mm-hmm. So how did you make that transition? There must have everything fallen in place for you just right.
Yeah. We, that year between 2005 and 2006, this group just came together, and I think Tom was just slowly building this team up from the athletes that had departed after 2004. We were bringing in a lot of young athletes. Just really building a group in the same way you'd build a freshman class for a collegiate 4-year experience. We all kind of felt like freshmen walking around. No one really knew how to do much. There were a couple older athletes that, definitely cracked the whip a little bit, but, we were just a young new group, and we're talking Karin Davies and Susan Francia and, wow. All of us, Caroline Lynn, Elle Logan, this is all of our beginnings. Lindsay Shoup, who just wrote a book. But this is all of us, getting together for that first time. And I was lucky enough to row the pair with Anna Michelson. I'm sure you've heard of her. she was from a Washington program, and we just clicked. We just clicked. She was all power, and I was the bow seat finesse, and just basically like set it up for her, and a lot of times, and we just clicked, and then we're able to go off to World Cups and do well. And when we first started rowing the state, there wasn't too many of us at the camp. I think there was like 12 or 13. But you ever just been in a boat and it just shoves off the dock, and you take those first couple strokes, and it's just magic. Like, that's the best way to describe it. Like, we went under the bridge at Princeton. That's where we were training at Princeton Training Center. We went under the bridge, and I got chills. Like, I got chills. I was like, this is the easiest, best rowing I've ever had in my life. And Karin was stroking, Caroline was 7, and Susan was in 6th seat, and we had Anna Goodale in there, and the all the way down the line. And we went, we got to the other end of the lake, and we spun the boat, and Mary Whipple was coxing. We sat there in silence. I remember just looking at each other, and the sun's beating down, and it was earlier in the fall of 05. And we just looked at each other, and we were like, is anyone going to, oh my God, you just have that feeling of like, this is going to be really good. So, of course, Tom does this thing where we like probably didn't get to row again together for a really long time, and we had to go back to the pairs and the singles and the slog of it all, which, eventually lends itself to greatness. But it was magic. It was just one of those boats that was just magic.
So in that 06 season, was that the first time you went to the Rothsay in Lucerne in the pair? Was that your first competition there?
I think so, yeah. Anne and I had been training in the pair, and we were kind of, going back and forth with the idea of doubling up. I know Tom was kind of putting that idea in motion, and we went to the Rothsay, which, Switzerland and Lucerne is just magical place. I mean, if you've seen it, it's just beautiful. And Anne and I raced in that race, and you'll have to forgive me, it seems like it was a long time ago, and many sleepless nights with 3 kids now. But I remember we had done well in our heat, we won our heat, and we were in the final, and we were going down the race course. And I remember there was this German pair that we just kept racing. Like, one of those, like, you get matched up against another pair all season, and you kind of just keep seeing the same 2 names. And so, here we go again. It's these guys again. And we're in the final with them. And I know they're ahead of us. We're in 2nd place, which, on all accounts, okay, great, silver. But we're within seats. We're bow to stern on them. And I remember getting into the last like 400 or 500 meters and just looking at Anna, and I just felt this like, let's just go. Just like, I think I might have called it early, but I was just go. And I have no idea what happened to the next 300 meters. Like, if you would ask me if a spaceship had landed next to us, I wouldn't be able to tell you what color it was. We just clicked and just went in total harmony. And I heard the finish line go by, and I looked up, and I could see their backs. I could see the back of the German unisuit, and I'm like, oh my God. And then we, of course, look over and realize we had just won it.
That's so cool to go for the first time on the Rothsay and winning the pairs. And, I think that's one of the, the biggest achievements, to win in a pairs title on the Rothsay, or maybe just at the World Championships. It's sensational. But you then went on to blow everyone away in the women's 8 at Dorney, that World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, it was an epic race. I mean, a huge rolling white cap tail, messy, not fun, And I remember thinking, we started the race, and you're going through all your checklists and pulling as hard as you can, and just inching out. And I remember in the last 600 meters, it got really bad, obviously at the other end of the lake, and it's pretty big. Yeah. And all I'm thinking in my mind is big circles. Don't mess this up. And Germany's, of course, the same 2 names again, bearing down on us, and we're getting towards the end, but we knew we had it. I mean, there was nothing that was going to take that away from us. So that was really exciting.
It must have been a pretty quick time as well.
Yeah, we set the world record, 5:55.5, which was
smoking.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really, really fun.
So I know you said you had your Olympic dream, and so 2006, it's halfway in the Olympic cycle. So, you know, looking at your record, you've got, I think, the one race in 2007. So I'm really intrigued to hear, you know, what happened to your Olympic dream and how you managed that period of time in your life.
Yeah. It got more challenging, I would say. Like more athletes entered. I was rowing the pair with a newer athlete because Anna and I were going to row the pair at the 2007 games, and she was going to double up in the 8, but I was just going to stay in the pair. I think it was Tom's method of just getting more athletes exposure to the World Championships. But you know, we were making it work. So every time Anna would be in the 8, I would row with, you know, who was at the time the spare. And I think we were in Germany, in Munich on the course there, and that summer. And I think we were doing starts or some kind of builders or something on the race course, and you know how Munich's just a bathtub, and you're just constantly in rollers, and we just did one, and I just kind of felt it snap, you know, like something in my back just went, and so at the World Championships, I was hurt. Like I couldn't touch my toes. I could barely walk. I could barely stand. I mean, I was literally days away from racing at the World Championships for the Olympic qualifier, and I couldn't move. So, so, you know, Tom had to reschedule some crews, and luckily enough, we had the depth to you know, still qualify and get that done. But it was 3 months of hell. You know, I mean, you know, had to get a cortisone shot and rehab and strenuous PT, and just get to the point where I was training on a bike and then training back in the single, and you know, having gone from being the starboard in the pair to, you know, being the last man out, I guess, you know, or just kind of being on the tail end of that selection process. It just took a toll. And so I spent that year training and trying to catch up, but the group was too fast. You know, the peloton had moved by, you know, a little bit, and so didn't make it in 08. But I think it gave me a lot of really, really good, valuable lessons, and lessons that I still think about now, you know, when I'm training crews and when I'm coaching. It's just, you know, having felt the highs of the win on the ROTC and the World Championships, and the lows of not, you know, touching a boat with your teammates for almost a year.
Was that when you decided that you'd move out of rowing and into coaching in 2008?
Yeah. I mean, I was, you know, technically cut. I mean, I was, you know, kind of just, you know, told I was done that summer of 08. And I had held out all hope, you know, honestly. I'd tried to find a pair partner and trying to, I'll scull, I'll sweep, I'll do, you know, I'll go as a spare, please. Just like, let me please keep continuing down this path. But, you know, I was done. And then I knew I needed to kind of move on. Like, I just was like, all right, like I need to reignite my joy and passion for my sport. And so I was able to, you know, get lucky enough to get hired. BB Bryans from Wisconsin hired me to be an assistant coach out in Wisconsin. And so my husband, actually, he was on the lightweight squad for the men. So he was out in Beijing. I packed up our house. We were, you know, dating at the time, but I packed up our house and moved to Wisconsin while he was gone. And then, we started our lives out there.
Well, was he in the 4 or the double?
The 4.
And how'd they get on?
I think they were B finalists. So, yeah.
So how did you guys meet then? Obviously through rowing.
Yeah. Funny enough, when I first moved out to Princeton, and you know, you kind of stay you're looking for a place to live, sleep on a couch, you know, all that. And he was, I had an older teammate from Cal who lived at the house he lived in. And so she said, well, I'll be gone when you arrive, you know, in a training camp. So why don't you come stay at my place? And so he was the first person I met when I moved to Princeton. So, and it's funny, you know, for me, you know, when I moved to Princeton, like I was from California, which is on the other side of America, the complete opposite side. No one in my family has ever left California. I mean, like I was the first person to ever leave, and so, I mean, I got rid of my apartment, when I decided to go out to the East Coast to do this thing. I mean, I like, it was severely severing ties, like it was like, I got rid of the apartment, got rid of an old boyfriend, like packed my car up and moved east. And it was like, see you later, like I'm doing this thing. And so he was the first person I met, literally on the other side. And so I don't know, maybe that's what it was.
So does he follow you? So does he follow you to Wisconsin, or travel with you to Wisconsin and then follow you over to Duke?
Well, I'd like to say we made a joint decision. So we did hand in hand for these, no following necessary. But yeah, I mean, I was hired at Wisconsin and worked there, and he was able to get a coaching position there as well. And he's an incredible coach. I mean, we're the yin and yang team. I mean, I'm all, piss and vinegar. I'm angry and animated and totally in your face. And he is calm and collected and like, holds back and says the one or two things and it's fun. But yeah, and when I was at Wisconsin, and I was there for a long time and worked a couple different positions there, and it was, I loved coaching, I loved Madison, I loved the program. But when the Duke position became available, I just had to try.
What was it about Duke and that position that made you think you had to go for it?
Oh, you have such good questions. I had watched the team for a long time, and I just felt like they had so much potential. Here was an athletic department that was gung-ho about sports, but at a really, really good school. And so you're getting this, I hate saying it, I hope my girls don't hear it, but like an Ivy League style education with like a big public school, a big state school style athletic experience. And I think when you can combine those two with a ton of school spirit, good academics, it just becomes why not? I mean, a really coveted place to be. And so I saw the job come open, and I interviewed and just walked around campus and just felt this energy of like, wow, this place is electric, The Duke men's basketball team is very famous. They're incredible, and they've produced a million amazing athletes that go on and play in the NBA. But that's not it. I mean, they have incredible soccer and field hockey and lacrosse and a ton of programs, Olympic programs that are really successful. And so I felt the energy on campus. I saw where they rowed. I mean, it's just beautiful lake, 5,000 meters, flat, clean water, private, no one else on it. Little boathouse, brand new, right on the banks there. I mean, it was just magic.
So I guess going there, you must have seen potential, but then to deliver that, you must have thought, right, I've got to make a few changes to this program. I've got to make a few more demands on the women involved in it. I mean, what was that like that first year for you?
It was wonderful and exhausting and everything in between. I mean, it was, coming in to bring a program to the NCAA level. There was, in my interview, I'd met with a lot of the student athletes, and my first job was to listen. What do you guys want to do? How far do you want to take it? And there were athletes that would do anything to be, top 10 in the country. They were willing to put in the work. They had the build, they had the desire, they had, the work ethic. And then there were other athletes on the team that just like didn't really have it or hadn't signed up for that. I think is the best way to say it. Like that's not what they signed up for. And so we lost a lot of people, and we lost a lot of athletes just say, hey, it's not for me. Wow. This isn't for me. This isn't for me. And so it was okay, no harm, no foul. And we kept going with the athletes that were super invested.
So have you got to the stage now where people know what they're going into, or women know what they're going into when they sign up for your program?
Yeah, I think we're getting better at it. You always get a surprise here and there that's like, no, it's a big transition from high school to college. I think the biggest thing is I'm very straightforward, especially with recruits on the phone to families and to to the athlete. Like, you are signing up for a pressure cooker. I mean, Duke is really hard. I mean, Duke is a very, very good school. You're going to be sitting in classrooms with 1% of the 1%. So the top kids, valedictorians left and right, top of their field, people going on to be NASA engineers and marine biologists and chief of surgeries. I mean, these are the people you're in classes with. You got to be on your A game. And then, not to mention, I'm not going to let you off the hook when it comes to practice. I mean, we practice 6 days a week, 2 times a day, and it's hard. You know, we have relatively few easy days, but the same thing that the top programs in the country are doing in terms of workload. It's just, you're always on. And so I'm very straightforward with our recruits. Like, if this is a place where you want to challenge yourself and you want to see yourself grow incredibly high and high achieving over 4 years, then look no further.
And I guess the women that sign up like that kind of talk, and they like you. And
maybe, I don't know. Yeah, they like the colors now.
So Duke wasn't at the NCAAs, I'm guessing, at first, and that's something the school had to earn the right to go and challenge in that environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had to be invited or qualify automatically, and so the team, you know, they had some successful years under the previous coach, and they had definitely had some fast boats and some really good athletes. But as a consistent whole, they were out of the qualification realm. And so our first year, we took, second places in all of the boat, or in enough of the boat categories for us to be qualified to go, which was a big change. So we were able to earn the program's first NCAA invite our first year. And I say ours because it was, I will never say it was me. I mean, it was me, it was my staff, it was the athletes, it was the program administrator, it was the budget, it was facility, it was everything, working together to make it happen. So that was exciting too. I mean, that we have video of like the first time the program, is announced on the NCAA selection show, and it'll give you chills. Wow. It's really fun to see these women who had rowed for 4 years, hoping and working and working, and then finally, the last 2 weeks of their rowing career, after 4 to sometimes, we're in high school, 8 years of trying, and within 2 weeks of their final row to get what they had wanted for that long, and to be announced, and for us to be able to go and compete and to have earned it. And it's like, for a woman, it's like breaking 7 minutes. Like, it's not that much harder than going 7:02. It's not, to go 6:59, but emotionally and mentally, for the first time, it's huge. It's really, really big, and it kind of just raises the bar and sets the stage for a whole new era.
So where is Duke now in terms of where you want it to be, or where you think it could be? So where is it on its journey?
Oh, well, for me, I think every single year we've gotten better. I think we've gotten faster. I think that this year, given the pandemic and everything, it's going to be wild, just to see, what happens. But for me, I think we're a championship level crew. I think we're a championship level team. We need a lot of right things to happen, but this team is gunning for our conference championship this year. I'd like to see us be a consistent top 10 team. And I think with work, we can get into that top few spots. But, I'd say right now, if you're to ask me where we are on our journey, it's aiming for a conference championship and trying to be one of the best teams in the country.
Is that the Atlantic Conference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ACC.
Yeah, wow. So you mentioned, the 7-minute barrier. How many of your women have you got around that mark in the 8 at the moment?
Oh, we've just done some rate cap ones, and so we have a couple right now that are under. I think if we did an open one, we'd have quite a few more. So, yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's exciting.
Tell me about COVID and how that sort of struck the university rowing program, and how you cope with it, and how the women have been doing through this time.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's been really, really hard on everybody, emotionally and physically. I mean, like I said, the season was canceled right after we had a scrimmage and a race last year. And then we were done without any warning. And so, athletes went home and, we have to remember where we were all emotionally. We didn't know there was no vaccine, not even a trial.
Yeah.
We didn't know what this thing was. You didn't know if you were going to get it at a bus stop or on an airplane. I mean, all we knew was that it was worse than the flu, and we weren't even being advised to wear masks at that point. And so it was pretty chaos. And I think the most important thing we did was just keep reminding our team, hey, we're still a team. We're still here for you. We kind of navigated through the regular springtime period of just connecting on, Zoom and just being there for each other. I think in the summer, we started to kind of transition from the shock and awe of the situation into the let's keep going. Let's find that momentum back that we had. I mean, last year, when the season was cut short last year, our women were so hyped up about winning the championship that it was just devastating. It gutted them. And so we, had a couple of team meetings. We just kind of came to this point in the summer of kind of just woke up of okay, it didn't happen, but it will happen. Right now there's still a race plan for next year. Right now there's still a season. Can you imagine if anyone else got there before us? And so we kind of just re-geared a little bit and just started to put the wheels in motion of I think we can still do this. And we started to get players back. We started to get people interested in transferring in. We started to get the team, captains organized and them getting the team organized and groups and all this kind of stuff. And we just started to go. Luckily, our university just did a phenomenal job of deciding to open their doors. And I think you saw a lot of schools in the country just say, you know what, we're not going to do it. You're going to stay home and take your Zoom classes and good luck. We'll see you when this thing's over. But, Duke said, you know what, we're going to open. We're going to do it right. We're going to do testing. We're going to bring back a smaller group of people on the campus, and we're going to try this thing. And I give Duke and everyone who works there just so much credit for just being gutsy. And it could fail. I mean, it could have failed spectacularly, but they did it. They brought students back. They were able to keep the doors open all through fall. They were able to keep the numbers low. They were able to keep the kids safe. And we were able to practice. We got back in a boat pretty much right away in August. We, did a slow build, realizing that athletes had been off for a really long time. And I met with the parents. I think that was a big thing of just sitting down with our parents, every other week, or I think it was once a month, and just explaining what we were doing, how we were going to keep their daughters safe, what we were going to do if we had COVID, what we were going to do if the whole thing got canceled. But in the meantime, we got to go for it. We have to try, and we have to do that, because if we don't know how it will emotionally impact these kids. They have spent their whole lives gunning and running for this situation. And to just say, we're not even going to try, I feel is the biggest disservice. So we've just been going on down that path, and we've had obstacles. I mean, I'm not going to say that, oh, it's been smooth sailing. I mean, there's every other week, there's something bubbling up, or we have to deal with or reposition. I mean, we do all sorts of things to be able to keep going, and all sorts of sacrifices that's made by every member of the team. But
what, Megan?
Oh, for example, in the fall, I mean, we only practiced half the team in any one location at a time. So we made these two teams within our team. And if one of those groups is in the erg room, the other one's on the lake, or if one of them's in the weight room, the other one's out on the track. So we really just kind of we're creative. We extensive cleaning, a lot of tracking where athletes are at any moment. I mean, we got to the point where we're testing 3 times a week. Now we test daily, just to be able to isolate or quarantine someone right away in case anything comes up. But it's a lot of work. I mean, to go get a COVID test on a daily basis, I mean, that's a lot. Yeah.
So how close are you to your 6 times a week, twice a day sort of training routine?
So now we're all together. since the January, we've all been in one room, and one goal and one team, and that's been incredible for their mental health. We train, twice a day most days. Thursday afternoons off and Sundays off, and that's it. Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about what your training program's like. I mean, how you put it together. Do you do a lot of competitive pieces in selection? Do you do a lot of long distance, low intensity? What's the balance of your program, and where do you get that from?
Yeah. Oh, well, well, I'll reveal what I can, but I think the key, I think you can win a race in a lot of different ways. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to train. And I think if you could sit at any, world championships, you can see you can win a race with a lot of different styles and a lot of different training techniques. I think the biggest thing for collegiate rowing is just constant exposure to competitiveness. Like they aren't in their third Olympiad able to do in the single steady state holding splits. We're not at that kind of level. I mean, you put 3, 4, 8 side by side, rate cap them at a 16 or an 18, and then you drive up and down the lake a few times. I mean, that's your practice. You don't want to over technique it. You don't want to over steady state it. I like to say, it's not, if you're training for 12 years at that level on a pair or a quad or something like that, that makes a lot more sense. But I think for the college aged athlete, with enough of the nuances and variables you have going on, let them sit side by side with another boat as often as possible, pull hard, and then I think what we do to really just limit the fatigue and the overtraining is just rate capping, you can only burn so much at a 16.
Do the women train with pulse meters on, or just go for the competition?
They're really competitive. like I have to, if I'm worried that we're getting too tired, it's okay, what kind of pause drills can we do today? We kind of have to stage a little bit more to kind of hold them back a little bit. But if they had their choice, they would line up every single day. They love racing. They love competing. I mean, we'll be doing stationary drills, and they're looking over to see if their bow ball is still out in front. I'm like, you guys, calm, internal focus. They're racers. I mean, they're racers. They're little underdogs, that's for sure.
So where does technique sit in that kind of very competitive environment? And what's your influences in terms of, you said there's a lot of different ways you can get a boat to move fast, which, I'm right there with you. But, what's the Cooke Carcagno way of moving a boat fast?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about efficiency. I'm 5'9", 150 pounds. I was able to make boats go fast because I learned what I needed to do and how to do it. I mean, I'm not a 630 erg. I'm not 6'2" with a 630 erg. It wasn't going to be about how hard I could hammer it, and get that win. I mean, for me, it was how efficiently can we move this boat? What can we do less of? That's a common statement on the water right now. It's do we need to do this? Is this necessary? Can we streamline this? Let's get rid of that. And just really shaving down the stroke to be as efficient as possible, with as little movement as possible, and just being able to kind of match it all together. I mean, I think you can do a lot of things differently, but if you're doing a lot of things differently in the boat, that's not going to work out very well. So, I think especially with COVID now, I mean, something we talk a lot about to our team is being very interchangeable and making sure that anyone that you're interchanging with, you're all doing the same thing. We have our top, boats rowing the same way. I want to be able to put anyone in any seat and not have it feel like a major disruption.
That must be quite a lot of credit down to your fellow coaches in the program, I guess, and the way you've synchronized everything.
I have some of the best assistant coaches ever. I mean, we are a family. We are definitely a unit. I'm very, very grateful for all of them. I think they do a tremendous job. I think we complemented each other really well. We've all taken on the roles inside the boat and with coaching, and then as well as outside the boat and all the logistics. I mean, we don't have we don't have a director of ops. We don't have, a secretary or anyone that would be kind of doing the nitty gritty and someone out at the grocery store buying the granola bars, like we do everything. The four of us do everything. Whether it's changing oars or cleaning the boats or driving the trailer, buying the food, organizing the meals, making sure the hotel contract didn't fall out on us. I mean, we take care of everything. We probably have one of the smallest staffs in the conference, just in terms of, the number of people we have available to the program. But we work really well together and everyone kind of knows their job. So it's good.
One more thing on the program. I was just wondering how many heavy weight sessions do you do with your team?
Oh, that's a hot topic for me. I'm in this point in my life where I'm like, some coaches are like all about the weights and some coaches are, not about the weights at all. And I'm very indifferent. I think the weight room's a great way to go get another workout and blow off steam. And it's really hard for me to tell how much of a toll it takes on the body and how that exactly translates into boat speed. So I hate to say it, but I'm probably like 50-50 in terms of like, we lift twice a week. And it's fun for them. It's also something that's funny when you ask athletes like, oh, do you like the lifting? And all of the athletes are always, yeah, we love lifting. And then I immediately know there's a problem with lifting. If they love lifting, like no one ever walks away from a 4x20-minute erg set and like, oh, I loved that, but you know how good it is for you. So we keep them in there though. It's fun. They turn the music on and they throw weights around and they do all these different contraptions and all these machines and all this stuff. And there's another coach in there telling them what to do. It's just good. And so they enjoy it. But yeah, right now we kind of scale it back just a little bit and have the primary focus is moving the boat. We erg for steady state, but it's, the primary focus is in the boat right now. That's where we need to take our hardest strokes. That's where we need to be the most disciplined. That's where we need to be the most focused. And as we get further and further through the season, I think it's just, coming to a needle point with that type of focus in the hull.
So when will be your first race?
Well, we've already had it, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. 2021, we're going, man. We had a scrimmage with Virginia that was postponed in February. So our first race was the beginning of March. And we took on UNC, which is right down the street from us, and which is University of North Carolina, and Clemson. So we took those guys on. We were able to get our 5th consecutive Carolina Cup. So we swept the race, which was fun for the girls. And I think it's a nice place for us to go first season because we raced that same race course at ACC's, which is our conference championship. So I think they have a good time out there and we just show up, row, race, put the boats right back on the trailer and then head home.
And what are the NCAA? What will they look like this year? Who's going to be there? Who's not going to be there? What do you know about that already?
Well, they're going to be down in Sarasota at the end of May this year. There'll be automatic qualifiers, and then there'll be crews that are selected at large just based off their performance. I think you'll see the same old teams there, in terms of Washington and Cal, Texas, Ohio State, Virginia, these are all the teams that have traditionally been there year after year. It's going to be interesting with the Ivy Leagues. I don't know, it's a little bit in flux right now about if they will have a season. It doesn't seem like their governing body is allowing too much competition beyond their boathouse. So they might, miss out on this year's show. But I think it also, in some ways, COVID has been kind of like a forest fire, where it's going to kind of allow some new programs to reemerge from the ground now that there's some daylight there. So I really think this year's championships will probably be the most exciting that they've ever been. Hopefully we come to that point, because I just think we've now kind of opened the floodgates on any different program that's doing a good job kind of handling this all to emerge and to set out their team's trajectory in a new way. It's funny, last year we talked as a team a lot about, winning a championship and having that be for the first time in Duke's history. And this year we've pivoted to, we're not trying to win a championship. We're trying to win a championship through a pandemic. And I think that that's a very subtle but important distinction. It's not going to come with the same challenges, and I wish it would. And then, when you're worried about seat racing and blisters, you've got your life good. But when you're taking into consideration your health and your safety, and how you're going to get from A to B, and what kind of N95 mask you're going to wear on the bus, and all that kind of stuff, it's definitely a whole new ballgame.
So have you got your best 8 selected already?
I would say halfway. I think I have a couple of key athletes that are just doing an amazing job. I've got a tremendous competitive team that's not going to make it easy on anybody else to get in there. And so, this morning we were out on the lake for 2 hours with a boat that was clipping along really, really nicely. But knowing how competitive they are, I think different athletes and young athletes too, it does take the younger athletes, the freshmen, the sophomores, it takes them until now and the next month, even they'll get real fast quick, just with this experience. So you always have to keep a door open for that. If I did a crew in November, what kind of development would I be doing? And how would the younger athletes get better? I think you really got to keep a keen eye out for a dark horse coming through late in the season that really you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
What's the likelihood of Duke taking a trip to Henley Regatta or Women's Henley one year? I know you've raced at the regatta yourself, haven't you?
I loved Henley. We set a course record there too that year in that 8, which was really fun. We trained for that. We did all these pieces out in Princeton, to the barrier, to Folly. We set these landmarks that we would race like on there were houses on the lake that we would use as the barrier and Folly, just to get that training in. But I would love to take the women to Henley. I would just absolutely love it. It's financially costly, and this year, with the COVID crisis, it's tough. But as soon as borders open and we can put together that trip, I would love it. I think the kids would go mad, and we always have a few British women on our team, and so I think.
Oh, do you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of international student athletes. Duke's such a global school. It really does attract. We've got women from New Zealand and Australia, Netherlands, and GB, and usually a few Canadians. So I think they would love it. So we'll be there. We'll be there as soon as we can.
Wow. Have you had any of your athletes or Duke's athletes head on to their national teams or the US national team at all, or get close to it?
Yeah, I would say the most we've had Izzy Ruby Hill. She's a Canadian that graduated 2 years ago. She rowed at the under-23 championships for 2 years. She won a gold medal in the women's 8, and then went on to stroke their straight 4. We have a couple international athletes that I think would have definitely gone last summer, but with everything canceled, it kind of was too bad. So we'll see what this summer brings. We've got a couple of speedy girls, and we'll see what they do.
What about your coaching, Megan? Because you've coached at the under-23s. Is it not for a couple of years now?
Yeah, just a couple. Yeah, they like to rotate it around. And I got the nod a couple of years ago in 17, 18. That was really fun. I mean, it's just such a whirlwind. I mean, with college, you recruit the athletes, you're with them for 4 years, you're day in, day out of coaching, and you really get to kind of mold and develop. And the under-23 team, I mean, you have 25 athletes from 25 programs. You've got 3 weeks to select a boat. They're all really good. I mean, these are the top 1 to 2 athletes on each team. And you've got 3 weeks, your weekend, and your development coach is like, hey, I need the names for the planes. And I'm like, we've had 6 practices. Like, are you kidding me? Give me some time. But, it's a lot of fun, and you work with just extremely high talented all the way around. And you try to simplify it as much as you can, but it's a blast. It was really, really rewarding, really fun. And I'm glad I got my turn at it. And I wish Iowa's program is hosting it this summer. They did last summer, and I wish them good luck, and go USA.
And I get the sense we started with women and coaching rowing, and there are women in the UK who coach the women's program successfully. I get the sense there are more women in coaching in the US than perhaps most other countries.
I don't know. I
Or
would
is that
say that
not right?
yeah, I think that that's something I'm obviously pretty passionate about. I think that there's a lot of women who do the assistant coaching. So like straight out of, college age to, like early 30s. I think that you'll see on most collegiate rosters, you'll see a ton of women there. It's the head coaching that you don't see many women at all. At last count, it was like fewer than 20% of all head coaching jobs were held by women. I think it's a really, really hard industry. It's a really hard industry for women, and just balancing a family life. I mean, there's no daycare that's open at 6 a.m. when you want to get on the water at daybreak. There's no Saturday evening when you're driving that trailer home after a day of racing that you can just kind of stash the kids. I mean, you really have to set up your family life and really do a lot of role reversal to make it work. It's challenging, and I think it's been a real turnoff to women, kind of when they get into that family, time in their years to continue with it. I think there's a lot of things we can do to make it easier, and I think we have to push with that. I'm glad that I can be a role model and a mentor to women that are going to stay in the field, but man, it's a challenge.
Wow. Well, I'm conscious of the fact we've been talking for over an hour now, Megan.
Yeah.
And you've been out in practice. You haven't had a chance to see your kids too much today.
No, I know. I can hear my little guy crying in the background, so I might have to go soon.
So yeah, I don't want to keep you too long. Is there any sense that you've got? There you go.
Thank you. He's got his work now.
Is there any sense, that you've, in terms of international ambitions or Olympic ambitions, that they're somewhere along there in the future, or is that too nebulous to talk about now?
Right now, my eyes are right where they should be. I will say at the moment, my hands are full, but I think the underdog in me says that in due time, with good patience, I'll go for anything.
Yeah. You are an amazing role model, Megan, and it's wonderful that to see your lovely son Remy there.
Yeah.
And a big thanks to Simon for being so patient while we talked.
Yeah, thank you. He's an amazing dad. I'm really these guys are lucky. We're all lucky.
It's been an absolute delight, Megan. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much for including me.
See you.